Since plants can't run away from you and they can't defend themselves, they produce what is called anti-nutrients or toxins. And because of this, so many people go to a carnivore diet or an elimination diet to just get some relief from all sorts of horrible digestive symptoms, skin conditions, bloating, sleeplessness, just to name a few. This was my story 2 years ago and why I followed a carnivore diet for over 2 years. Now I've decided to add a few foods back in, but what are the foods I am not going to be adding back in? Stay tuned to find out. Welcome back. My name is Sarah. I am known as Carnivore Yogi. Thank you so much for coming back to my YouTube channel and clicking on today's video. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the foods I am not planning on adding back into my diet and why. Now, if you are new here, check out my gut healing playlist. I have done more than just the carnivore diet to heal my gut. And when you can't digest certain foods, it is dependent upon the health of your gut. There are some foods that we should be able to digest if we have a healthy gut. So please do check out that gut health playlist if you are curious about how I did heal my gut beyond the carnivore diet. Although carnivore was extremely helpful. And I also want to throw a little disclaimer out there. I am not a doctor, and if you do have some of these issues, you may want to work with one in order to make sure that you are following this for your body in a healthy way. So the first food I am not planning on adding back in is nuts. Now, I know nuts are ketogenic, and I am staying more with a low carb or ketogenic type of a protocol here with my food reintroductions, and nuts are keto, right? So why am I not going to bring those back in? Well, if you go back to the intro, we talk about those anti-nutrients, and unfortunately, a lot of nuts have mold and mycotoxins and things that cause those reactions, even when they're soaked. And so there's that, but also there's the other reason why these are kind of poison to my body is that I can't just eat 1 ounce. I can't just eat 1 handful. They're so delicious. They're so amazing that I want to eat the whole bag. And so when you look at a food that you don't want to add back into your diet, you want to look at the nutritional value of it. Is this going to add something to my body? Is this going to help? And you want to look at that, can I control myself around this food? And nuts are something that I just definitely cannot control myself around at this point in time. And also they have those things that I react to. I reacted to them before and they gave me horrible gut issues and issues with my knees, joint pain. So, I just would rather be safe than sorry, and I'm not going to add those in at this point. The second food I am not planning on adding back in is not actually a plant, but it's worthy mention at the very top of the list, and that is pasteurized dairy. Now notice I did not say raw dairy. I think raw dairy, and I've experimented with some raw dairy, it's actually been really good for me. Raw cream, a little bit of raw cheese has been amazing. And I have a local farm here that I can get this from, source it very easily. So it's good. But the pasteurized dairy is a different thing. Pasteurized dairy has been heated, and a lot of those enzymes that are beneficial to your gut and are beneficial to your body have been taken out. They've also added a lot of fillers and things, especially in those cheeses, that are very harmful to the body and can cause inflammation and cause a lot of pain. So I do see this, people that do a carnivore diet and they're still having higher blood sugar numbers and they're still having pain and inflammation. Look at the pasteurized dairy, right? And then even with raw dairy, I have to be careful with that satiety. I haven't had an instance since adding it back in that I've gone overboard and overeaten it. So for now, that gets to stay. The next thing that I will not be adding back into my diet is going to be high sugar fruits. I do plan on keeping my diet low carb and more towards a ketogenic protocol. And so those high sugar fruits, for me, they cause those crazy blood sugar swings. And when my blood sugar is dysregulated, I'm just not a really nice person. I had to laugh a little bit. I get hangry. I just don't feel good. I don't get all that energy that people say they get from carbohydrates. I feel a lot better with a low carb approach. So high sugar fruits would be like the Honeycrisp apples and the bananas. Now, if you can eat those and they don't cause you problems, go for it. Grapes, dates, those types of things are just foods I'm not interested in bringing back into my diet at this point in time. The next thing I am not planning on adding back into my diet is high oxalate foods. Now, this can be things like rhubarb, spinach, sweet potato. I'm just not quite ready to do it. Now, I have been doing some research about how you can pressure cook a lot of these foods and cut down on that oxalate content. But when I went to a carnivore diet, I had horrible oxalate dumping for a while, and I had to use a binder, and it was just not a fun thing. Now, almonds and nuts, a lot of those contain high oxalates as well. So, those nuts can also fit into this oxalate container here, but your leafy kale, the spinach, the rhubarb, Swiss chard, those types of foods, I'm just not really interested in adding them back in at this point. Again, I might explore down the road if I can pressure cook them and get some of those toxins out, but I just don't see any value in adding those things back into my diet at this point in time. Lectins are another thing that I'm not really interested in adding back in. So your beans, legumes, peanuts are actually a legume. My last excursion before the carnivore diet was actually some lentil soup. I had soaked the lentils and put them in the pressure cooker, and I had the worst week of my life trying to eat that lentil soup that week. Just horrible indigestion, couldn't sleep, the gas, all of it was terrible. And so I wasn't getting the benefit from those lectins. Tomatoes, eggplants, peppers. I have tried to reintroduce the tomatoes and the peppers and immediately got flushing in my face. So you know what? I'm fine without those back in my diet. And again, they're under that category of lectins, so they may not be good for everybody. Some other foods I'm not really interested in adding back in are a lot of grains, that especially buckwheat, barley, rye, and oats. Now, those are really, really inflammatory to my gut in particular. Again, you have to test this out for yourself, but those are just things I'm not really interested in adding back in. I may experiment with a little bit of white rice, but again, I'd like to stay more on that low carb ketogenic end. But I see that white rice is a lot more benign than like the buckwheat, oats, barley, rye. All of those grains tend to be a lot more inflammatory. So I'm not really interested in putting those back in my diet at this time. White rice is probably not on the list as well because I am trying to stay more low carb and keto, but I would think it's a little bit more safe than some of these other foods. I'm also not interested in adding in any kind of oils other than animal oils. So butter, ghee, duck fat, tallow, all of those, okay. But the seed oils, I may experiment a little bit with coconut oil, with olive oil from a good high quality source, but I'm not interested in any sort of canola oil, any sort of seed oils. I'm just not interested in putting those back in my body after really studying what those toxic oils can do to your body and cause weight loss resistance and just really cause your body to hold on to fat and not run as efficiently. So I will not be adding in those toxic seed oils, which brings me to my next category, which is processed foods. So processed foods usually are laden with these oils, and it's just a lot easier if you can cook things yourself. I'm also not going to be adding in most artificial sweeteners. I found that stevia is okay for me every now and then, but it cannot be an everyday thing. But a lot of the other artificial sweeteners still cause issues with my gut. They still cause GI upset and they trigger those sugar cravings. So going back to those first couple of points, if something causes a craving or causes you to lose touch with your satiety, it's probably not something that you want to add back into your diet. So artificial sweeteners also going to go on that list. So what foods are okay? Well, I'll have to make a separate video about that. There are actually a lot of foods that I can eat outside of these categories, and there are ways around some of these things. Like if you're going to add cucumbers or squash or some of those, take the seeds out, or with some things you can pressure cook them and get rid of that high anti-nutrient content. But this is where I'm at this point, that I'm just not interested in adding those things back in. If I decide to experiment with something, it's not going to be a toxic seed oil, by the way. I'll let you guys know. I'll make a video about it. But I wanted to go ahead and throw this list out there for you guys who are curious about the foods that I am definitely not adding back in and why. I hope that this video was helpful. I'm going to try to do what I eat in a day video really soon, I promise. But for now, make sure you are subscribed, like and share this video, and I will talk with you guys in the next video. Bye.